Welcome back to another episode of the Media Pass. I'm your host, Alex, joined as always by your other host, Matt. Matt, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. Another week I get to look at your handsome face. I have the last episode pulled up and I could see our faces. And I don't know why we look so young. We look so young in that last episode. I know it's only been like 8 days, but I feel like we've aged a lot in the last 8 days, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot's happened. So I feel like I've been aged. So we got some questions from last episode, but before we get into that, Matt, you've got a quick little spiel you got to give.
Is it about Ryan Dunn?
No, I thought. If you want to say some stuff, be my guest.
No, I'm not going to address that all at smoke. But I do have, if we have time, I would love to rant about how some media members like to use certain situations. There's certain media members out there. This is a quick aside for you people at home. There's certain media members out there. Me and Alex don't fall in this category because when we have a problem with each other, we just message each other. But there is certain media members, I know you know the type, that will sacrifice friendships to get likes and retweets. And like if they see like they're a friend of theirs who is getting a lot of like just shit thrown their way, right, on social media, instead of texting them and be like, hey man, like just disagree here, like this is why, will quote tweet it, and they'll act like you guys are not friends. Like they will pretend that you are just Skip Bayless and they're dunking. I just want to get that rant out there. And I mean, those people, they have to look at themselves in the mirror every day. So I'm not too upset about it, but this is the media pass. So we're supposed to give people behind the scenes scoop what's going on.
This is funny because I contemplated really hard, trying to dunk on you when you had the Ryan Dunn tweet, but I was like, I can't do that to my boy. I can't do it. You would
dunk on me?
So I texted you and I was like, I really didn't think about it. My first instinct was, I'm going to text him. And I texted you and I said something along the lines of, people are killing you, dude. You're getting cooked for this.
Yeah. And whenever that happens, I just send the tweet to my buddies in our group chat. And I just let them fester with all the quote tweets because it's pretty funny when you get cooked. Anyways, yeah. By the way, the podcast, The Media Pass, is a partner with StatHead and Basketball Reference. A lot of the stats that me and Alex use to make these episodes to think about basketball, get smarter with basketball, come directly from StatHead. And thanks to them, if you sign up with the code Media Pass. Is it Media Pass 20 or just Media Pass?
I believe it's just Media Pass.
I'll fact check that. But if you sign up with this code that I'm going to fact check, you get 20% off a 1-year subscription with StatHead. Again, it's a great website. You have to do the full 1 year for us to benefit. It means a lot to the channel. Yeah, it is just Media Pass. So Media Pass, which is the name of the show, just drop the thought. But if you do it, it means a lot to us and it will help you immensely. I mean, me and Alex use it all the time. And I think it's a really great tool, especially if you're just looking for those cool little queries. Like, man, when was the last time some guy averaged 28 points and 65% true shooting in a season while also attempting 9 threes per game or something like that? You can just search it up within 3 or 4 minutes. It's a really great tool, one of the best databases and one of the most popular databases across the land. So yeah, 20% off year-long subscription. Use the code MediaPass for a 1-year subscription. Now back to our regular programming.
Here's a fun little stat just to give you an idea, because I'm doing a video on LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball, if his shooting holds up, his three-point volume and three-point percentage, he would become the third player in NBA history. Technically, Anthony Edwards would too. He would become the 3rd/4th player in NBA history to shoot 10 or more threes a night and make them on at least a 39% clip. It would be LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Damian Lillard, and Steph Curry. I believe Dame's done it twice, and Steph has done it 3 times. So yeah, there's a fun little stat from StatHead. Go get your subscription. But back to our regularly scheduled programming. We got some questions. You guys did much better this episode. I'm not upset anymore. I've calmed down. We have questions to answer. We're good. Let's get into them.
All right. The first one, Because Alex said I get to, it's like a little kid, like, you get to lick the spoon. Alex letting me read the questions. But at Anthony and Scott said, this is a first timer, right? First time questioner.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. Hey, Matt and Alex, huge fan of the show. This pod is extremely underrated, in my opinion, and I do not use that term lightly. I have one question for you guys. What do both of you think is the primary issue plaguing the Bucks in their extremely average starts this season? Is it offense, defense, or both? That is coming from someone who loves basketball, but is certainly not as big of an expert as you two. Again, thanks for the awesome content. I wouldn't call us experts. I would just say we're two guys. I wouldn't
call myself an expert, but yeah.
I would say we're two guys who just watch a lot. I think any average human being could get to our level of expertise if they just made the time for it. But so the Bucks thing.
Yeah, we're just guys. We're guys with a lot of free time. That's really all it is.
The Bucks thing. So this is actually one of my picks for what we're doing on the pod. So do you want to just put a pin in this for now? We're going to talk about them in a little bit.
Yeah, we're basically going to answer this question. To put a little bow on it, sneak peek. There's a lot of stuff, but we'll move on to the next question. All right. Stick around. We'll answer that.
Yes. There's a question. Does Matt with 2 T's have a YouTube channel? I'm not sure if Matt with 2 T's does. Matt with 1 T does not. Although I do plan on doing some more video work in the future. Okay. Next we got frequent commenter, frequent fan of the show, Beyond the Arc, YT. Always look forward to when y'all drop a new episode to hear y'all analysis. My question is, how well do you think Paolo Banchero was playing, and did he take any big strides in his game? Alex?
So, I mean, Paolo is one of those guys who, he does the passing stuff out of the forward position. Like, you're basically building your offense around the gravity that he has. He can do like the pick and roll ball handling stuff. I think where you're going to see most of the improvements for him going forward, obviously like him making more advanced passing reads is going to be good, and creating like more high value opportunities, being more conscious of how he's manipulating defenses. Like all that stuff's really important. But I think the big thing for Paolo this year that we're going to see is just improvements in his efficiency. Because one, he's going to be working with theoretically better spacing this year. That kind of hasn't been. Jalen Suggs has been a monster from 3. I'm not sure how Franz Wagner's 3-point percentage has been trending so far this season, but I know last year he had a down year. But theoretically, you hope Franz starts to find a shot again. So with that will come more space for Paolo to work with. And so the biggest improvements for him as far as taking that superstar leap to me is just going to be, what shots is he taking, and are more of them going in? Because the big complaint with him from a lot of people has been the mid-range stuff. I don't think Paolo shouldn't be shooting mid-range shots. I think being a little more picky about them is would behoove him. But I think just him becoming a better shot maker is going to, carry a lot of water for him.
Yeah, I mean, me and Paolo Banchero fans have a very complicated relationship, but I gotta say,
I'm walking on eggshells talking about him.
I gotta say, dude, before the injury, that guy was balling out. Like, he cleaned up the shot diet big time. He's done more to the rim now, using that strength, using that Herculean frame. And I think my big knock with Paolo Banchero is like, the offense was worse when he was on the floor last year, and then the defense was worse, which kind of makes sense because they have such great defensive personnel that, like, even just being like an average defender, the defense will get worse with you on the floor. But this year, like, his indicators, at least on the offense side of the ball, were really good. He was really pumping that offense up. And I mean, without him, we're going to be a little spoiler. We're also going to be talking about the Magic in a little bit, but without him, they don't look too good right now, which is not something I was expecting, but I don't want to get too deep into that. Save that for the segment. Let's get over to the next question. I just love this comment. I don't even think this is like so it's at user WUASJ3EE3D. Totally agree with Cam Thomas. Wonder what stats are on his defense and getting scored. His defense is so bad. I appreciate that. Then we got the return of Steamy Ramen 7743.
Let's go. Let's go.
Fellas, glad to have you back. As an overreacting Bucks fan, did we even need to do the Drew Holiday trade? Dame is obviously better offensively, but what we had worked. If we needed to make a move, shouldn't we have moved Brooke or Bobby? Heartbreaking, or like, no. This probably doesn't get too much into the Bucks segment, so I think we can answer this one.
Yeah, I want to say something. I think, you look at the Drew Holiday stuff, sure. That's reasonable. He's been really good with the Celtics. Why they probably shouldn't have fired Mike Budenholzer.
I mean, that was well, first of all, like not even like forget like what? Why would you fire a dude because his brother died? Like that's literally what really cost him in that series. Like his brother getting killed in the middle of the series. Like, I'm sorry, he's a human being. Like the fact that he even coached during that series was just insane in and of itself. Like, I'm not trying to say like the Bucks are like some inhumane organization, but like, come on, like that's not. And look what he's doing with the Suns, like your Phoenix Suns. He's
my Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
yes.
He's making them look like a respectable basketball team that can win games and have some offensive cohesion. I think that's the big one. The Drew Holiday thing is interesting. I mean, we could do the revisionist history all we want. Everybody, if you look at any article, everybody's like, the Bucks, like they got better with his Dame trade. They had an aging core. And Dame's coming off a career year. Like it made sense at the time. We could say now, look at what Drew Holiday's doing in a very simplified role on a very good Boston Celtics team and be like, yeah, he would definitely be doing that. Like the efficiency and the scoring he's doing on that Celtics team now with the Bucks. But I mean, I don't like getting into that game, the revisionist history game. I think the Mike Budenholzer thing was very easy at the time. A lot of people were saying it was a bad idea to fire him. He's a good coach. He didn't really deserve to get the axe there. But the Dame one is like, yeah, I guess, an older guard. But I don't know. I don't know that everybody kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, if you are like, they shouldn't have traded Drew, go look at Drew Holiday's shooting splits from really any of his Bucks playoff runs. Like Drew Holiday, I love Drew Holiday. He's been fantastic for the Celtics. He was not, there were plenty of times where he left a lot to be desired in the postseason, even after looking fantastic during the regular season. I think even the year before that with the Bucks, he had like one of the best regular seasons of his career, if I'm remembering correctly. And then the playoffs roll around and it's like, oh, you can't make anything. And that's, I understand trading that player for Damian Lillard. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a huge difference between like what Drew Holiday had to do with the Bucks, which is, anchor their defense and then also be like their second option on offense, than on the Celtics where it's like, you play a very important role in our defense, but you're not everything we have. We have a guy named Derek White who's arguably just as good as you at your job in case anything goes wrong. And then it's like people like try to hide defenders on Drew Holiday. They're not putting like their best defenders. They're like, hey, point guard who's like 150 pounds soaking wet. Why don't you try to guard Drew Holiday and hope they forget that Drew Holiday's on the court and then he doesn't post you up or anything? It's a huge difference. But yeah, we'll talk about the Bucks in a second. They've got some things to sort out. We got Nilsh5681. I think this is a first time questionnaire, right, Alex?
Sounds like it. I'm not familiar with the name. We try to remember frequent commenters and let them know we appreciate them.
You're
we
better
appreciate
about
all
that.
of our commenters.
You're better about remembering that than me, even though I think overall I have the stronger memory. But
I would agree.
Mike, thanks for the podcast, guys. My question is, which coach is currently the most underrated and has the greatest potential to become a long-term successful established coach? I'm just going to say it first before you say it, because I know you're thinking the same thing as me. Mr. Will Hardy on the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about Mike Budenholzer, so I'd still had I mean, it's not really relevant to the question, but in terms of like success stories, it's like, oh, he gets fired from the Bucks after helping them win a championship, and then he goes to the Suns, and then who knows what's going to happen with them. But I'm a Mike Budenholzer defender. What can I say? But yeah, Will Hardy, like every basketball nerd that I know, and I that's like positive nerd positive, not nerd derogatory. Every basketball nerd that I know like loves Will Hardy because he's a good coach. Like he's definitely. There's this really good book called "Steal Like an Artist," and it's about the importance of like if you're like working in any creative field. You take elements from different artists and different creators that you like and are influenced by. And at first it's like, yeah, you're kind of copying the things that they're doing, but then you end up with your own style that is unique to you, even though it draws influence from so many different other things. Really fantastic book. Highly recommend everyone read it, regardless of if you're in a creative field. But Will Hardy, I feel like is stealing like an artist when it comes to, he was with the Celtics and then he came to Utah, and he kind of uses some of the same philosophies that they use, and it's a lot of fun.
Just like a nerdy little thing about Hardy that I really enjoyed. I love like when coaches can put non-shooting centers in the corner and like just find different ways to use them creatively. Like he'll have like Walker Kessler like crash for offensive rebounds, or like ghost cut from the corner, or set like exit screens or like pin in screens. And I just think that's like really cool because I don't know, it's just something that's different. Like when you think of like a big man who can't shoot, usually they're in the dunker spot or they're setting screens, or they try to make them play in the DHO game even though they can't pass. So I don't know, just a fun little nerdy thing. I'm sure there's a lot of like high school coaches out there that are probably doing that, and we just don't see them, and we just give Will Hardy all this credit for being creative. But I don't know, I like it.
Dude, that's one thing I've realized lately. Like high school coaches get pissed when somebody like posts a play, just like any play. Like it could be something just real, like somebody posts like the Lakers running Finland, and you have a high school coach like quote tweeting it like, my 12-year-old boys team runs this all the time. This is not impressive. And I'm like, dog, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy like how much it all like like I was watching the Wizards Warriors the other day. Midway through the first quarter, Brian Keefe calls a timeout. They come out with a play, and it's literally like the head coach I work under's favorite ATO. Like he uses it all the time. And they had like a little small wrinkle so I said to Strover, I'm like, we should add this in. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But it's a weird world. NBA X's and O's, high school X's and O's, elementary school X and O's to some, but Swim on Land 98198. This is definitely a first timer. Hi guys, loving the pod. Question about the Pelicans here. Given the rough start, the injuries, and the poor fit, do you see the Pelicans becoming a playoff team this season? I know we all expect them to make some moves by the deadline, but I'm starting to worry about the trade value of many of their pieces. DeJounte, B.I., throw in the fact that they're far from the only team in dire need of a decent big, and it seems like they're in a bad spot, to put it lightly. What do you guys think? Alex, I believe you're going to be answering this question in just a little bit, so I think we should transition over to the meat of the podcast. What do you think?
Let's get into it. Let's get into it, man.
Do you want to talk about the Pelicans right now as the first team, or what are you thinking?
We had a lot of Bucks stuff, so let's just go ahead and get the Bucks out of the way. So basically, you'll probably be able to infer this from the title of the video, but we're pressing the panic button for some teams. And what do we mean by that? Obviously, it's very early in the season. I think every team has still played under 10 games. Mm-hmm. So we are not even a quarter of the way through the season yet. However, there are some things that are less excusable that are sticking out for some teams, and definitely looking like consistent pain points. So we're going to get into, we've each picked three things, or three teams, or, well, I guess it could be individuals rather than just teams as a whole. But we're pressing the panic button for something.
I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast or it was an article I did, but pretty recently, maybe like 10 days ago, we'll say, I was like, oh, we got to slow down with this, like the Bucks are cooked stuff, like it's just the beginning of the season, they'll be okay. And then this week, I was part of a little round table with my buddies Jackson Frake and Ben Pfeiffer. So it inspired me to watch some more Bucks basketball. And this team, man, I think they're cooked. And I'm not saying like, I know they win yesterday against the Utah Jazz. We're recording this on a Friday morning. And that's all, hunky dory. They play the young guys a little bit more. It goes well. Who would have thought? But I'm saying cooked, like this team's not contending for an NBA title. I could see them winning a playoff series just because I respect Giannis like that much as like an offensive force. And Damian Lillard's still having an incredible offensive season by the numbers. But this team is old. They're very old, slow, right? You got I think they are first in the league in terms of average age by minutes played. I don't know how that's calculated, but they're, I think, one of the only teams where their average age in this stat is like over 30 years old. I think it's 30.7. They are not very well coached, to be honest. There's a lot of, you could see this a lot with transition defense. That's like a good indicator of how well coached a team is. They're slow to get back. They don't match up properly, missing assignments and all that stuff. You really see this. And I know it gets exasperated because they're playing a team on the other end of the spectrum in the Memphis Grizzlies, who's young, fast, super well coached, but they were just running circles all over them a couple Thursdays ago. I think it was Halloween and it got really spooky. No pun intended there. They don't have too much depth. The guys that were supposed to really be big for them this offseason, and I thought were going to be nice signings, have sucked. Not trying to be rude, but like Taurean Prince has not been, he's overtasked as like a primary point of attack defender. Gary Trent Jr. just hasn't had it this year. He hasn't had like one of his huge like blow up 30.93 games. And he just isn't like a really good guy, like on a down to down basis. DeLon Wright has fallen off significantly on defense. He just does not look like that high-end, Chris Dunn type player anymore, where it's like he's no offense, but his defense is just so good, you got to leave him on the floor. It does not look like that anymore. Giannis, dude, he's not an above-average positional defender anymore, I don't think. What do you think of that?
I haven't paid enough attention to Giannis on an individual level defensively, but my big gripe with the Bucks is they're not just like, their defense, I think numbers wise isn't that bad, but the time in which a lot of their defensive breakdowns occur, like I was watching the Cavs game where they, it was like it was like kind of a, not the most recent one, but the one before that, where they almost won. You get to the fourth quarter and all of a sudden all these defensive breakdowns just start happening. And one of the ways that defensive breakdowns are caused is by like fast movement by offensive players, like catching defenders by surprise, even guys without the ball in their hands. And it creates advantages and, gets guys out of position. And it really helps when you have a lot of young guys on the floor like the Cavs do, who are willing to exert that energy to make those off-ball cuts and create that space and create those numbers advantages in the half court. And it's really hard for a team like the Bucks, who have guys like Bobby Portis out there, who is getting flipped around every couple of seconds because his man is cutting off ball, and all of a sudden he's just sitting there defending nobody, and the Cavs just get right to the rim and score with no issue. And there were a few times I actually noticed like Giannis being out of position, over helping a little bit out of the paint, and that leading to open looks at the rim. And it's just, Giannis, I think Giannis is not without blame, but I also think he's probably a little overburdened defensively just by nature of how old this team is and the fact that he's got to do a lot on the offensive end and do a lot on the defensive end now. But I completely agree. Like Gary Trent Jr. is not defending effectively. Damian Lillard, we all know Damian Lillard's not out there for his defense. Taurean Prince, like, you know, in certain roles when you stick him on like a non-shooting 4 or something like that, or a low volume perimeter 3, you know, he'll be fine, but he's not going to be a defensive stopper like they probably need. And I just feel like they've got the Bucks have a lot of like 7th, 8th, and 9th men in the rotation who are having to play like 4th, 5th, and 6th guy in the rotation minutes. And that's not a recipe for, I don't care who your top end talent is. That's not a recipe for success. There's a quote, I don't know like where it's from, but you're only as good as your 5th starter. And I think there's, you know, it's not true 100% of the time, but there is some truth to that. And when your 5th starter is, you know, Taurean Prince or Gary Trent Jr. or Bobby Portis or whoever, Pat Connaughton, it's like this team is not constructed well at all.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think they're going to be it's actually, by the way, that's a baseball quote. I just looked it up.
Really?
I couldn't find. Yeah, because I mean, you think about it, the 5th guy in the rotation. I've been all over the baseball kick lately. I just watched the Red Sox documentary, but great stuff. The thing is with them too is like you could say, you know, Middleton's coming back, and that'll be helpful. Middleton looked really good towards the end of last season. He's still a very good player in this league. I have no doubt about that. And, you know, the Andre Jackson and AJ Green playing more minutes thing, that helps them. They're better with those 2 guys on the court. They have all these like young guys and stuff. Some of them are project players, which is concerning because, you know, unless that project's one of those projects that can be finished in like 3 to 5 months, you know, that's not going to help them this season. My thing with the Bucks is like, I think they'll get better. I don't think they'll continue to be this 2-6, like downtrodden team. I think they're closer to like a 500-ish team, but that's not going to cut it when you have Giannis and Dame. That's not the expectation with this team. And my thing with the young players is like, you know, we talk about like these guys, like one guy me and you always talk about, at least recently, is Julian Straw, right? He's just like this dude. He's like, you know, a late 1st round pick. He's not like highly touted, but like me and you both could easily see a pathway where this guy's like important soon, right? Do you feel that way about any of the Bucks guys? Like I think Andre Jackson Jr. is like Joe Wolfland, really underrated writer on Twitter. He tweeted out something last night like, Andre Jackson's like fucking galaxies better than the next defender on the Bucks at point attack defense. And like, that's true, but like, I don't think Andre Jackson's like a top 15 point of attack defender in the NBA. Do you? Like, do any of their young guys like give you Julian Strawther vibes?
No. And especially like on the offensive end, like, you know, even if you are, that's the other thing that's so frustrating with the Bucks right now. It's like, yeah, you can find positives in some of their guys, but like, there's also just so many, like Bobby Portis. Yes, he is technically an efficient scorer. I don't know how he is this year, but historically he is an efficient scorer. And it's like, okay, cool. But like he gets destroyed on defense. His shot selection, like he can sometimes shoot you out of games when he's on the floor. Like there's just so many like big flaws that all of these players have. And like Andre Jackson Jr., for example, I think he's a great player, but like you said, how much of like a floor raiser is his defense, or a ceiling raiser, if that's the way you want to go? I think he's probably more of a floor raising situation. Like I know Marjon Beauchamp was a guy that a lot of people wanted to see more from, but at this point, I think not just like in terms of actual on-court production, I think like that dude probably is not a fan of how he's been done by this organization, and I don't blame him. He should. I just don't know why they chose to go for guys like Taurean Prince, and not saying Taurean Prince is a bad player, because he's not. He's just overextended and probably not in the best role. But like they had guys that they could have tried first before doing all these, you know, let's get a bunch of 75 overalls and see if we can build a team of that. And that turns out that doesn't work. It's like, yeah, it doesn't work on 2K. It doesn't work here. And I'm mostly joking when I say that, but like, you know, I don't know, man.
I was really
I don't know what
bullish
to
on
say
the
about the
Bucks
Bucks anymore.
this offseason, but like my theory of the team was like, okay, you have your core four, and then you have all of these options, right? You have Prince, Trent, AJ Green, Bobby Portis, Andre Jackson Jr., and you just need one of them like every night to kind of show up for you. And it doesn't matter who, and you just kind of rotate around that, and like you'll probably be a really good basketball team. But I didn't anticipate Giannis being like not good on defense. I didn't anticipate Chris Middleton not playing. I didn't anticipate Damian Lillard probably being like the worst defender in the NBA this year. He's just been rough. I didn't anticipate like Prince, Gary Trent, DeLon Wright, like all sucking at the same time all the time. It was just a lot's going wrong, and I think I could safely put a bow in them. I don't think we'll be talking about them as a title contender this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's talk about Dan Ollinger. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey out with a hamstring injury. Which sucks. They already are dealing with the suspension of Joel Embiid, which I think, just on the record, I think that's stupid. The suspension of Joel Embiid, I believe he's coming back Tuesday, though. Now Tyrese Maxey's out with an injury, which I think the other thing that not a lot of people had been talking about is Maxey was off to a pretty slow start. Probably, you know, part of that is the amount of burden he was having the shoulder. Not that I don't think he's capable of handling more usage. Like, he proved that last year. I think this is going to make it harder when he comes back to, you know, you think, okay, well, Embiid's out, Paul George is out. At the very least, we'll give Maxey a ton of reps to start to heat up and get acclimated and find his rhythm. And then now he has an injury. When he gets back, he's going to have to find his rhythm again. And that's going to be while also navigating the reemergence of Paul George and Joel Embiid into the lineup. So it's just all these different things that are kind of piling up at this point. I think the Sixers are still a good enough team that they will make the playoffs. Like, are you worried about the Sixers not making the playoffs?
Yeah, no, I actually am. I think it's that bad. They're like not good when it's no Paul George and no Joel Embiid. Or just honestly missing two of the three stars. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of this year. I think they're going to be without two of the three stars. And I mean, I know it's basically like you got to be really bad to not be the 10th seed in the East. And I think they could do that. But like, can I trust them to win two playing games that time? I don't know. But yeah, I think that's on the table for sure this year, missing the playoffs.
So let's go through the Eastern Conference right now, and we'll just go ahead and get right off the bat, establish some locks for the playoffs.
Good call.
Cavs, Celtics, Pacers, Knicks.
Yeah.
That's 4.
Wait, are we saying Pacers are locked for the playoffs or a top 10 seed?
Lock for the playoffs. So I'm saying top 6 seeds only.
Okay, I wouldn't put the Pacers there.
So really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that opens the door. So Heat, do we think the Heat?
Yeah, so that's 4.
Okay. Hawks?
Not a lock, no. I want them to be so desperately, but no.
The Nets are the 4 seed right now. They don't feel like a lock for a top 6 seed to me.
No. They don't want to be a lock.
Well, okay, so that's just 4 teams that we have. Everything after that is Hawks, Knicks, Hornets, Bulls, Wizards, Pistons, Magic, Bucks, Raptors, Sixers.
Man, the East is rough, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm like, I think they'll still make the playoffs, but they do have they're 1-6 right now. And you look at the 5th seed Hawks, they're 4-5. It's like, now the Sixers are theoretically going to end up in a deeper hole, as the Hawks are like theoretically just having early season woes. The Knicks are in the same boat. They're 3-4 right now. They're theoretically going to, the problem to me is teams, let's say the Sixers, the Knicks, the Hawks, and the Heat all started like right here. Mm-hmm. Well, now the season started, and the teams that aren't the Sixers are in theory going to do this and slowly go up as they improve and gel and establish continuity and chemistry. The Sixers, who started at the same spot as everybody else, maybe they started off at more of a flat line with the rest of the guys, but then the Tyrese Maxey injury happened, the Joel Embiid weird situation and injury stuff happened, and all of a sudden, they're going here while everyone else is going here. And so the distance between the rest of the teams that are theoretically going to make the playoffs outright and the 76ers, who are right now 1-6, is just getting bigger. And it's creating this big mountain to climb that they're going to have to summit Mount Everest when they get everyone healthy, whenever that time comes. And so the East to me is bad enough that, like, are we really banking on the Hornets keeping the Sixers out of a playoff spot or a play-in spot? It's like, no. But we've seen crazy things happen where good teams miss the playoffs because of the play-in. So the 76ers, obviously, they want to avoid the play-in as much as they possibly can. But the longer we get into the season where other teams are gelling and the Sixers are just trying to get everyone healthy and on the floor again, that's going to be a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, did you watch the Clippers game where Maxey gets hurt?
No.
Oh, Paul George looked good. He looks good. Like, he's fine. I'm not worried about him. He's still, good old Paul George. Looks huge, right? Like, he's just blocking shots left and right, coming out of nowhere, deflected passes, hitting tough shots. He's still playoff B, right? Maxey's Maxey, good young player. If Embiid comes back and he, looks like one of the top two players in the world, that's like a really fearsome threesome. And like, it's enough where I would say I feel better about the 76ers than the Bucks, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, okay. Definitely.
Yeah. So I think the three of them are like a really synergistic big three. I'm not a big fan of the big three model these days anymore, but they're a really synergistic one. It's not like the Suns one where it's like a bunch of overlapping skill sets. But their role players just don't move me. I've become like really, over the last 2 years, I would say really like enthralled by supporting casts. And this is just not like a strong supporting cast to me. Like, who is their next best player after that top three? Is it Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, who has like this weird hitch going on in his shot? Like, maybe he's always had it, but it's even more pronounced now. He doesn't look like the same guy offensively that he was for the Heat in that legendary run, further adding to the flukiness of it. Defensively, he looks great, but is he their next best player? Kyle Lowry still got all the veteran tricks and guile and stuff, but how much more can you really rely on that? Andre Drummond's like a cool. He sucks, dude. No, he did something
pretty well.
He did something yesterday. It was so like, I've been being mean today. I gotta stop saying NBA basketball players who would kill me if you tied one of their hands behind their back and one of their legs to their hamstring. They would still kill me one-on-one, right? Destroy me, okay? I got to stop saying that. But he did something yesterday. It was just inexcusable. So he was, I got to remember this play. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed this, but I think Ty Lue's giving Chris Dunn like a huge leash on defense, like kind of just letting him go crazy, right? So he double teams, I want to say Maxey. He was guarding whatever his name is. Yabusele, is that how you say his name, correct? He doubles off of him, okay? And instead of dive cutting to the rim, right, to force the weak side defender to tag him and create an open three, Yabusele thinks it's a good idea to like move towards that weak side shooter and just like basically make the job of the weak side defender easier. And I'm just like, this is such like a simple thing. Like I caught this without having to rewind or go slow mo. I just caught it. I'm like, this is just such an obvious lack of awareness and spacing. I'm like, this is like this supporting cast is not good. I like the theory of Jared McCann. I think he's a great shooter. I don't know how helpful he can be this year though. Reggie Jackson, he got in the game after Tyrese Maxey got hurt. Like they finally tried to give him some run when they were down by 20 against the Clippers. That tells you everything you kind of need to know about him at this point in his career. I don't know, man. Like their supporting casts were not good. Like I'm trying to think of a team. Okay, who would you say has a better supporting cast? The 76ers or I don't know. The Indiana Pacers around Tyrese and Siakam and Turner.
I would say probably the Pacers.
And I don't even love the Pacers supporting cast that much. So like I don't know.
They've just got like even if they're not like the best players in the world,
mm-hmm.
they're consistent. I feel
mm-hmm.
like. Which is, I'll take the guy who I know is going to give me the same thing every single night over the guy who, he might be just like really fine, or he might just like Yabusele, where it's, he's completely mucking up your entire team's spacing. It's like, that's a kind of important, like that. We need that in order to generate offense. This is an important principle of basketball that is necessary.
Like it's like ideal. You pair like your consistent guys with like boomer bust guys. Like that's a good like team balance, right?
Yeah.
The problem is the 76ers, they used all their boomer bust points on their stars. Like Paul George, Joel Embiid. At this point is as boomer or bust as it gets. Either, they're not playing or they're setting the world on fire. Like two of the top 15, 20 players in the NBA. So you need like role players who are like, I know what I'm going to get from you every night. And like Andre Drummond is like the exact opposite of I know what I'm going to get from you every night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They need more Isaiah Jacksons and less Andre Drummonds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which Isaiah Jackson is injured now, so they probably don't need more Isaiah Jacksons, but
he in his current state might be better than Yabusele, at least at spacing the floor. That turns it over to me. I'm a little bit worried about the New York Knicks. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot. There's three types of teams that make deep playoff runs, right? You got the balanced teams, okay? They're top 10 offense, top 10 defense. You have like your Minnesota Timberwolves, elite defense, historically great defense, like the Timberwolves were last year. And then you have like your 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns, like the elite silver bullet offense. No type of defense can really slow them down to any meaningful level, right? The Knicks are not going to be an elite defensive team. We knew that when, you put Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5. So the vision was they're either going to be this crazy offensive team, and they're pretty good, 4th overall in offense right now. Jalen Brunson's doing some work. Miles McBride, pretty good basketball player, if I do say so myself. But their defense is 20th overall. There's no shooting component to really factor into this. Yes, Mitchell Robinson hurt. Yes, Precious Achiuwa hurt. Those are two of your better defensive players that'll probably help. But I look at this team, and I think the big thing that's hurting me right now, we knew like Karl-Anthony Towns, rim protector, not exactly going to be a pleasurable experience. He is not disappointed in that regard. He's his usual self when he's playing the 5. So the thing is, like, okay, the theory of this team is like, we have Brunson, we have Karl-Anthony Towns, but it's okay because we have OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and 2 of those 3 pieces are living up to their reputation. I think OG Anunoby, chef's kiss defense, right? He's been spectacular per usual. should get some all defensive team consideration. I think Josh Hart, he's never been like a great defender, especially on the ball. I think he's kind of overrated, to be honest, on the ball, but like great box out guy, really knows how to play within a scheme, can switch on to bigger guys for a second and give them a hard time. Good off ball defender, get all that nail help. Mikal Bridges has not been a good defender this year to me. I don't know how you feel about his defense, but I watched 2 of their games this week. I watched them play the Rockets and I watched them play the Hawks. And they gave him primary point of attack responsibilities in both of those games. And so, this is the media pass. We explain things. We explain what we're looking for. When it comes to point of attack defense, for me, I'm really looking at how much are you the one who's dictating what's going on, right? So are you staying connected to the guy who you're defending? Like when a screen is set, are you able to keep a hand on him without, them foul baiting you and get through the screen without losing connection, right? Or not for too long? Are you anticipating the screen? Like when a screen's coming, are you like making an adjustment with your body to get ready to go around it? Or are you just like running into a brick wall every time? I guess those are really the biggest components. But and then are you obviously effort? Are you actually putting the effort through? Are you literally just trying to flop when you get hit by the screen every time in foul bait? And Bridges is just, he doesn't stay connected well. I don't like his anticipation. I don't like his technique. He doesn't do a good job of keeping his hand on a defender and like kind of getting around and staying connected to them. He always loses connection. He is not strong. He's pretty like, he looks like a fish out of water every time like he's trying to navigate his screen. Like he's just flopping around, trying to get through it. It just does not look good. Like, and the thing is, OG Anunoby, much better point of attack defender right now this year, but you want him near the rim being your secondary rim protector because he's better than Mikal Bridges at that too. He's better at being a nail defender than Mikal Bridges. You know what I mean? He's a better rebounder than Mikal Bridges. And then you have like Deuce McBride, who's probably their best point of attack defender on the team. But like, if you play Deuce McBride, you have to take out Josh Hart, and then you lose all that rebounding and the pace pushing in transition, or you take out Mikal Bridges, and that becomes a whole thing. It's you trade 5 first-round picks for this guy. What do you mean? He's not closing games for you? So I don't think all this is to say I don't think they can get a top 10 defense this year. I'm worried about that, right? And if they don't have a top 10 defense, they're really going to need to be just kicking ass on offense. And there was this tweet from Ben Ritz Holtman. Rit Holtman is the Twitter account. You know what I'm talking about? Knicks guy.
Yeah, he does stuff for Knicks Film School, I believe.
Yeah. Great.
Ben Ritz Holtman, I think.
Ritz Holtman. Is that actually his name, or is that like a famous coach's name? I think it's a famous coach's name, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just that's what his Twitter name is.
Yeah. So we're actually unsure of his true identity, but he tweeted out something like the Knicks are 3-0, or now they're 3-1 when they play teams that have they use like a drop big man, right? And they defend Cat with a drop big man. And then they're 0-3 when they play teams who have the personnel to put a non-big on Cat and then put their center on Josh Hart, right? And like, there's a lot of like intricacies about it. We could go into it right now if we really need to, but the fact that there's a weakness like that in their offense where like, you can put like a forward on Cat and they can get away with it and they can move their center onto Josh Hart and he can protect the rim and mess with the spacing. That's like a little thing. I still think this is a really healthy offense, a really, really good offense, but I'm not sure that they're like this elite level that you need to be at for where their defense is at. So, I mean, yeah, this is a long season. They're still learning how to gel together. If Mikal Bridges goes back to his Phoenix Suns defensive days, this is all like a mute point, but little bit worried about the New York Knicks as inner circle title contenders right now.
I think I'm going to let you just put a bow on that because I have nothing to add.
Do you agree with the Mikal Bridges stuff?
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like one thing I'm always watching in like when guys are navigating screens is like you have the space between the ball handler and the screener. Mm-hmm. And you want to like make yourself as small as possible to like get around that screen. Sometimes you're not able to because the ball handler is able to get enough separation from you that they can literally leave no space between them and the screen. So in that case, it's a different discussion. But I feel like something I've noticed from Mikal this year is like he's not doing as well as he did in Phoenix when it comes to making himself small, getting through that space. Like you said, like a lot of it is technique. Like, how is your footwork able to, step like around these screens and still maintain enough speed to keep a hand on the ball handler and maintain, staying in line with them. It's not an easy thing to do, but Mikal Bridges used to be much better at it, and he's not. And I don't know, it's one of those things like, what happened? Is this something that the coaching staff is telling him, we don't want you to exert as much energy here, so it's okay if you get a little step behind, it is what it is. What happened? I want to know why. Is this just him not giving as much effort? I don't know. It's weird.
It makes me wonder if we just we got too excited about that Phoenix Suns team. I think we got a little bit too excited about DeAndre and a little bit too excited about Mikal Bridges, a little too excited about Cam Johnson. And look where that took us, right? Like, look, they're all kind of doing their own thing now. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the league's just getting better. Like, we just have more like really good point of attack defenders now, and like what he does just looks less spectacular. But yeah. Anyways, Alex, who are you hitting sounding the alarms on next for number 2?
So I got a curveball. This is going to catch the audience by surprise.
I like curveballs.
I'm panicking about the Golden State Warriors because they look really good. Still, once again, they look really good. Have you looked at Buddy Hield's shooting splits?
Isn't he like leading the league in 3-point attempts per 75 and hitting like 51% of his threes or something like that?
Yeah, he has 50, 50, 85 shooting splits right now.
Oh, God.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's not sustainable. Even for a shooter like Buddy Hield, that's not sustainable. But it's fun for now until we get to the playoffs and they run into my Oklahoma City Thunder and they just Steph goes back, turns the clock back to 2016, and they knock my Oklahoma City Thunder out of the playoffs. So I'm panicking a little bit, Matt. I'm a little worried because here we are after all year talking about the downfall of the Golden State Warriors, how this might be the end for them. They lost Klay Thompson, Draymond Green's putting Rudy Gobert in chokeholds and stomping on Domantas Sabonis. Is this the end for the Golden State Warriors? And then here we are. They're atop the Eastern Conference, 7-1. Buddy Hield is looking like the reincarnation of Klay Thompson. What are we going to do, man? So seeing where they're at right now, do you think this is a case of just a hot start, or do you think that this team is still top tier contender in the West amongst what we've seen so far?
I think they're a team with a pretty high ceiling, but also pretty shaky floor in terms of, I think that this team works really, I like the theory of this team. It's like Curry anchors the offense, Draymond anchors the defense. Then you have like 10 guys and you just pick and choose who you want that night. Because the cool thing about Buddy Hield, I wrote about him this week. He's like their Klay Thompson without any of the baggage, right? There's no game 6. There's no game 6 heroics. There's no Splash Brothers. There's no 12 years. There's no dynasty. It's like, if Buddy Hield's got it, sure, ride him 30 minutes. If he doesn't, cool. Moses Moody, pretty good basketball player. Jonathan Kuminga, not as great as everybody says, but still pretty good basketball player. Brandon Pajemski, have you heard of Brandon Pajemski? Incredible basketball player. Swiss Army knife, dude. Dude, he's on my fantasy team. He's awesome. He is awesome.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins. Who knew? Like, when life isn't hard for you,
he's making his threes.
You can be a great basketball player when life isn't being absolutely terrible to you, right? Trace Jackson Davis, last pick of the draft. Who knew rim running big man? Pretty valuable, right? Kevon Looney can still kind of play basketball. DeAnthony Melton, we haven't even said his name. He's a basketball player. Kyle Anderson. When he's got it, you can have like this team. I love it. I love the roster construction. You have a creative coach who knows. He's been one thing about Steve Kerr, master button pusher. That guy knows how to push buttons. Remember, we'll go back to Game 4 against the Boston Celtics in the 2022 NBA Finals. It says, Draymond Green, you're going to sit out this last 5 minutes. We need some Otto Porter Jr., right? Like just knowing to push that button completely change the series. Flip the series on its head, they win the championship, right? So you have that. The problem is, what happens if Curry misses time? You know what I mean? It's all the whole cookie crumbles.
Not even just him, but Draymond to a lesser extent. Like Draymond, not just, you can talk about the suspension stuff, which, that's, I mean, it is basketball related, but it's less basketball related. But even still, like Draymond gets hurt. He's not completely injury prone. He doesn't have glass ankles like Curry, but he does still get hurt on occasion. I guess I'm looking years and years ago. Yeah, last year he played 55 games. Obviously, some of that was due to suspension. Year before that, 73. But then before that, 46, 63, 43, 66. Like Draymond isn't, I'm trying to equate him to a certain player, but, he's not fully injury prone where you're like, oh, he's hurt all the time, but he gets hurt. And that's going to be problematic if he gets suspended or he gets hurt. But you made a good point earlier about how they've just got a ton of guys that they can throw at the wall. They have 13 players that have played at least 10 minutes per game so far this season. And if you take DeAnthony Melton out of that, because he's only played 3 games so far, they have 12 players that have been averaging at least 10 minutes a night, which, I get it's early in the season. A lot of teams are going deep into their rotation, but to have that many guys over 10 minutes a night is, I think, a little bit atypical. And, like even a guy like Lindy Waters, who as an OKC fan, I was not always thrilled to see Lindy Waters put out on the floor because of some of the defensive concerns, but the Warriors have the ability to deal with that. Like the Warriors defense right now is spectacular, and they can let Lindy Waters, hey, go out there, dude, just shoot the ball. And he's knocking down 39% of his three-point attempts in 15 minutes a game so far. It's like, oh, cool. They have a guy that can do that. And I'm interested to see, health permitting, what the final version of this team looks like at the end of the season when we're heading into the playoffs, where we're like, what's the new Warriors death lineup? Because this is very much outside of Steph and Draymond, and obviously the young guys of Kuminga, Moses Moody, I guess Andrew Wiggins, even though they've been without the good version of Andrew Wiggins for a while due to, the unfortunate stuff going on in his life. This is kind of a newish team, like a newish iteration of the Warriors, where I'm excited to see what the idealized version of them looks like. But I am panicking because they're really good.
Yeah, I like how you mix that in. Did you ever play Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid?
I did not. I was more of a Pokemon guy.
I played a lot of Pokemon too, but I had a lot of free time as a kid. Also watched a lot.
I was busy grinding. You were busy playing. That's fine.
You won't get the reference, but this Warriors team, man, they're gonna be fun. That's all I got. We gotta have a deeper dive about them because they're interesting. I think that nobody wants to play them in the playoffs. Next, last one for me. We kind of talked a little bit about them, but I'm panicking about everybody's Orlando Magic, man. So coming into the season, I wasn't super bullish on them because I'm like, this is basically the same team. They just have a little bit more defense. I think we rank them as just like a good team, not contender kind of team in our power rankings. But I'm getting worried. First of all, so last week, Paolo gets hurt, right? I actually wrote a quick article for Sportscasting saying that I think the Magic will be able to survive this Paolo injury, even though Paolo's getting way better, taking a massive leap, looking like a legitimate all-star now. Last season, they were pretty good when he wasn't on the floor. Their offense was better and their defense was better. I didn't think the offense was going to get better. I thought it was going to stand pat, right, this year, because I'm like, Franz, Cole Anthony, they have like a nice little synergy. They'll be able to eke out enough points, and then the defense gets better because, Paolo's like an average defender, but he was taking minutes away from all the elite defenders they had. Mr. Anthony Black, Mr. Jalen Suggs, Mr. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Franz Wagner, pretty good defender, honestly, for his like archetype. The list goes on. Oh, John, how could I forget Jonathan Isaac? He's not bad at defense, right? So I was like, they're just going to be the best defense in the league for the next month. And then they'll kind of get by on offense, whatever. Minnesota Timberwolves style it, right? The thing is, they don't play Cole Anthony, okay? They don't play him, and their offense is just really bad, man. They've had 2 games since Paolo's been hurt where they've scored less than 90 points in 2025. That's rough, man. They finally got to that 112-point mark against the lowly Indiana Pacers defense, but they still end up losing. I don't know if they'll even be in position. I know the East is really bad, so we just we went through all that. But by the time Paolo gets back, will they have a chance at a top 6 seed in the East, or they will be too far gone by then?
I think they'll still have a shot. Right now, I would say shooting. The shooting is that's why I'm not panicking for them just yet, because
they've had bad shooting
has been otherworldly bad. Just to give people perspective here, they're shooting 31% from the corner, which that is unusual. That's not normal. Overall, they're shooting 29.8% from 3. That's not normal. That will come up. That coming up to even 33% is good for a couple more wins for them. I think they'll be fine, but yes, they need Paolo back as quickly as possible. And I do think there is some silver lining stuff going on here where a guy like Tristan da Silva is going to get some burn for you, more so than he probably would. He's been one of their better shooters so far this year, which is important. Obviously, volume is still very small. So I do think you look at all these things that have gone wrong for them. I think in maybe a month and a half, we're going to be talking about all the things that are going right for them, because shooting variance is one of those things where it's variance for a reason. And is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope going to be a 24.4% 3-point shooter for the rest of the season? Probably not. That being said, is Tristan da Silva going to be the best shooter on your team for the rest of the season? Probably not. We'll see. So I'm just waiting for this team a lot. And this goes for a lot of these teams. We're waiting for these teams to level out a little bit. Because right now the volatility is off the charts, especially with injuries and whatnot. So, but I don't know if I'm panicking about them as much as you are. If they haven't started to figure things out before Paolo is coming back, that's when I'm going to be a little bit worried. And I need to see that this team can start stringing together some wins without Paolo. I think that's going to be important for them, just figuring out really what they have to work with.
Well, 2 things. One is, why are they not playing Cole Anthony? He is your second best on-ball creator on this team without Paolo Banchero. Franz, and then it's him. I don't know, and that leaks into my second point, where it's remember earlier this year, before the season started, we're what if Jalen Suggs takes this playmaking leap? What's the functional difference between him and Drew Holiday at that point? And I'm I don't know. What is the functional difference? But he hasn't taken that leap. And I don't think any of their young guys have really, other than Paolo, really this year have been wow, man, Anthony Black just looks so much better this year. Jet Howard looks so much better this year. Tristan Silva's a rookie, so there's no frame of reference for a leap. But have any of their young guys really popped this year outside of Paolo?
Anthony Black has individual possessions where I'm like, whoa, that was like really good. But then like you look at the actual efficiency and then you're like, oh, okay. Well, it looked good during the game, but I'm probably a bit more optimistic about Anthony Black just because of all the like good stuff that he's done. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, it's just like your shots need to fall, dude. Like this team can't afford to have a bunch of guys who have individual flashes of really good stuff, but they just can't make their shots. It's like, that's not going to work. That's not a winning formula. But I don't think the book has been written on this team yet, just because of how otherworldly bad they've shot. It's like just unfathomably bad.
I'll say this. So when I say panic, my panic is like, I think a lot of people this year came into the season thinking like the Magic, and I might have thought this to agree, are going to build on what happened last year. So what's the building, the natural progression? You're going to win a playoff series this year. I just don't see that happening right now. Even with like if Powell comes back, if they're like an 8th seed having to play the Boston Celtics in the first round, it's not going to be fun.
Right.
But yeah, you can go ahead and do this after you reveal your last 3. I think in order of like most panic to least panic right now, with my 3, I'm going to go Bucks, cream of the crop, creme de la creme. That's worrisome. The Knicks, only because the
3
expectations
Michelin
are
star
so
panic.
high. Yes. The Knicks, only because they have such large expectations. And then the Magic, because I mean their expectations are kind of small. And like the range of their underperformance is not as far off, I would say, as the other 2. But please reveal your last one.
My last one I'm going to say is the New Orleans Pelicans. And, how much can you really be panicking about a team that you came into this season not really being sure about in the first place? I'm not like, calling 911 levels of panic. But I'm like, I'm worried because they just don't have a ton to work with. It feels like this team has kind of handcuffed itself to a flawed model of playing around these 2 kind of inside the arc guys in Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. Zion has looked very passive at times, which is a big problem. Obviously they have to deal with injuries and stuff. Their center play is a concern. I'm just not sure. If DeJounte Murray was playing, I'm probably feeling a little bit better about this team. Because I actually, for all the criticisms you can have of DeJounte Murray, he is a decent defender when he doesn't have a ton of offense to shoulder. He is a solid offensive contributor in the right context. And he helped their depth. He shored up their depth a little bit and allowed other guys to take a further back seat, which is important for a team that doesn't have a ton of depth. And you look at, okay, they got CJ, they got Ingram, they got Zion, they got Jordan Hawkins, they got Herb Jones. But then you get further down this list and you're like, Jose Alvarado, Brandon Boston Jr.
They love
Misi,
Brandon Boston.
who has been, they do. Misi's been great as well. He's been one of the best rookies from this class. In a silver lining in an otherwise dark cloud of a season so far. Javonte Green, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Daniel Tice, Jalen Noel. There's just not. You look at the contrast between the Golden State Warriors and the New Orleans Pelicans, where the Golden State Warriors just have a lot of crap that they can throw at the wall. Mm-hmm. Like they got a lot of stuff that they got a lot of toys to play with. I think, this team has proven time and time again that early February, late January, early February rolls around and we're all like, hey, look, the Pelicans are a good defense, or hey, look, the Pelicans have figured it out offensively. They're attempting more threes, stuff like that. Brandon Ingram's taking more threes. There's going to be that stuff that happens. But The problem for me with the Pelicans is that this happens every year. We do this every year. Are they going to win a playoff series? It's the same with the Magic. It's like, yeah, there's going to be stuff that this team figures out. Every team's going to figure stuff out. The difference between the Pelicans and the teams that are going to make deep playoff runs, win a playoff series, win 2 playoff series, can upset a team in the conference semifinals. The Pelicans don't have that upside. Like, they don't have that punch that they can throw where it's like, you need to be elite to stop this, or you need to be elite to score on this. They don't have that thing. Their identity is good basketball team that is currently incapable of being a great basketball team. And the thing that just tears me up is trying to figure out what happens for this team that takes them from a good basketball team to a great one. And right now, unless Zion, a trade, yes, a trade would probably help this team a lot.
Right.
But it sounds like teams don't want Brandon Ingram. Do you trade Zion? Who do you trade? Who do you trade for?
I mean,
and the fact that we can't answer those questions is the problem. There's not upside for this team. They have to work with what they have, and what they have is not enough. And that's the problem to me.
It's like, so what you're saying, like, there's 3 categories, right, about a basketball team. You got like fit, you got talent, you got depth, right? That's kind of like what the league is. Okay, they have a lot of pure talent. You know, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. Pretty nice names. Jordan Hawkins. Did you say anything about the Jordan Hawkins leap? He's looking pretty good.
He's had moments. I'm still hoping the efficiency comes up a little bit. But yes, he's good.
He's kind of had to be like Hercules for them, though. That's why the efficiency's low. He looks aggressive.
They threw him into the middle of the ocean amongst a bunch of great white sharks and said, "Shoot the ball, man. Have fun."
He's like, yeah, you remember he played at UConn, deluxe spacing? Yeah, you don't have any of that here. We don't have that here. But anyways, so there's that problem. They have a lot of talent. Fit is terrible. Fit sucks on this team. And then depth. They're just like, I mean, you know, most teams aren't built to withstand their whole starting 5 being hurt. But they really are not built to withstand it, right? We talked about the center stuff. That's a huge kind of predicament. I think Misi has done a serviceable job, but even when I watch him on film, I'm not seeing like that Derek Lively level of maturity in his game where I'm like, yeah, I could trust this guy in a playoff series to really come up big for me. And that's an unreasonable standard to have, because Derek Lively is like one of the best rookie seasons from a center in the last like 25 years. And he just got stuck by the fact that the 2 ones that were better than him were Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama, but that's a different story. And then it looks like Christmas isn't coming late this year for the Pelicans. You know how you say like they always turn around the second half season. So for the last 2 years, the New Orleans Pelicans defense has been benefiting from a little thing they call shooting luck. They've had the best shooting luck in the NBA for the last 2 years. And brother, if you did not believe in regression, you have to now, because teams are shooting 50% on open threes against the New Orleans Pelicans. Oh man, is the law of average a cruel being? The law of averages, excuse me, is that a cruel being? Like, so now you have this team that just does not fit together, does not like to stay healthy. You know, all their lucks run dry. They have no luck anymore. They were coasting on like, they OD'd on luck in the last 2 years, and now they just have none of it. And Alex, before we head out of here, can you name all of the teams in the Western Conference that you are 100% certain the New Orleans Pelicans are better than?
The Utah Jazz, the Portland Trailblazers, dare I say the Spurs?
Are we 100% sure that they're better than the Spurs?
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like
you seen Malachi Branham this year?
75% sure. Oh, please No, we're not. We can't do
Yeah.
this, Matt. We can't do this. We can't go. We can't start talking about Malachi Branham. We will have completely lost the plot.
I'm sounding the alarm because I don't think you're as high on Malachi Branham as me, and I think it's a problem.
We're just gonna we're gonna keep moving. But okay, we'll say there is like 2.5 teams that I'm certain the Pelicans are better than, and it's the Jazz, the Trailblazers, and like maybe the San Antonio Spurs.
That's rough.
Everyone
dude.
else, yeah. Well, is maybe the Pelicans in any other year are like, yeah, they're a playoff team or they're a play-in team. If the play-in didn't exist, they're a playoff team. But the West, it's like everyone thinks they can win in the West right now. Everyone thinks they can win. Even the Spurs have tricked themselves into thinking that they can win, even though Victor Wembanyama is shooting 50, 28-foot jumpers a game.
You know how good the West is? We're 3 weeks into the season, like 3 weeks into like our actual basketball content, like not the preseason stuff. We haven't said a word about the Sacramento Kings. That's a pretty good basketball team. If the Sacramento Kings were in the Eastern Conference, they'd probably go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like they would have a realistic shot of doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just like a team. They're just kind of like a team in the Western Conference. Houston Rockets, you know, they're top 7 in offensive and defensive rating. Do we ever talk about the Houston Rockets? West's a scary place.
I will say that there's the Rockets start to the season. We got to get out of here, but the Rockets start to the season was rough, and they've been very good since then. It's been 8 games, so that's like saying nothing. It's like the first 4 games they were bad. The 4 games after that they were good. It's like
it's kind of like the Viking season.
Stop it! Just stop it.
The first 4 games they were good.
They beat the Colts. They beat the Colts. All right. On that note, I'm not going to let Matt disrespect me anymore, so we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Leave your comments and questions down below. We're going to be sure to answer them on the next podcast. As always, leave a 5-star rating. Leave a review of what you liked, what you didn't like. Just be nice about it. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Leave a like. Helps us out a ton. Use code MediaPass for your StatHead subscription. Get 20% off your first year. You have to do the year-long subscription. Help support the channel. Help support the podcast. Help us continue to make these. So, guys, thank you so much. The last podcast episode was like one of our most viewed podcasts ever, which was awesome. So thank you, guys. Really means the world. Follow us on Twitter at AlexHoops_, at Mat Issa 15, MATISSA 15. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.